Welcome everyone to Whimsy Woven Stories. Here, we explore gripping tales of real-life twists. Join our storytelling community.
Dave Brown sat alone in his living room. Across from his chair was an empty couch, and between them sat a coffee table holding 3 champagne glasses, 1 full, 2 empty. Next to the table was a champagne bottle chilling in an ice bucket. Anyone watching him at 7:02 p.m. might have been a little uneasy when he suddenly spoke aloud. That's right, I can hear her car pulling into the driveway. But no one was watching. Dave was completely alone. He stayed seated, calm and composed. When the front door opened, he couldn't be seen from his spot, but he immediately heard his wife's voice. "Dave, where are you?" "In the living room, Deb," he replied. He stood up as she walked into the room, holding the hand of a man about 5 years younger than her. Deb was 49. The guy was lean, average height, dressed in a sharp business suit. In her other hand, she carried a bright orange A4 envelope. Dave, this is Michael." "Michael, this is my husband, Dave," she said, avoiding eye contact, clearly nervous. Dave stepped forward and extended his hand with surprising warmth. "Nice to meet you, Michael." "Mind if I call you Mike?" "Not at all, sir. Can I offer you a glass of champagne?" "Please, have a seat." Dave poured the drinks and handed them over. The 2 men, both visibly uncomfortable, sat on the couch. "Cheers," Dave said. He raised his glass and then looked at both of them. "Now, would you 2 mind telling a simple guy like me what this is all about?" Deb and Mike glanced at each other. Mike gave a small nod and gently squeezed her hand. "Dave," she began, "there's really no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to come out with it. Michael and I, we've fallen in love. I want a divorce so we can get married." She paused, bracing for an outburst. When she dared to look up, Dave's expression hadn't changed. No anger, no yelling, just calm. It threw her off. She instinctively shifted a little closer to Mike. "Okay, Deb," Dave said evenly. "Are those the divorce papers?" She stared at him, stunned. In all the time she played this moment out in her head, it had never gone like this. Not even close. She looked to Mike, silently mouthing, "I don't know what to say." Mike took the envelope from her and set it down on the table. "Yes, Dave. Everything's in there. I think you'll find the terms very fair. Deb's not asking for anything except her car. Inside is a formal waiver for the house, your car, any joint assets, and your retirement. Everything's signed and notarized. I should mention, I'm a lawyer. But feel free to get your own attorney, just to be sure." "Well," Dave said with a half-smile, "you're both being very generous." Deb looked flustered. It was like she was waiting for him to explode. "It was Mike's idea, actually," she said quickly. "He insisted. Said it was bad enough taking your wife, he didn't want to take your money too. That wasn't my motive at all," Mike added. "But yeah, I'm doing fine financially. Better than Deb and I would have had together, honestly." Dave nodded. "Maybe things would have been different if you got a job after the kids grew up, helped out a bit more with the bills, Deb." She lowered her eyes, saying nothing. Dave looked over at Mike. "So, Mike, is your wife going to give you a speech like this? Or has she already?" Mike stared at the floor for a second, then looked up. "No, my wife passed away. 8 years ago, I lost my wife," Mike said quietly. "I'm sorry to hear that," Dave replied. "Actually, thanks, Dave. It was brutal for a year or 2, but you know how it goes. Time heals, right?" Mike gave a faint smile. "Look, I really am sorry about all of this. But when I met Deb, it felt like I found the piece of me that had been missing. I didn't think I could ever feel whole again. I've been in love with your wife for a few months now, and I just needed to say it out loud." "It's okay, Mike," Dave said calmly. "I don't hold grudges. Really. You have my blessing. Go ahead and marry her." Mike and Deb stared at him, stunned. Deb, because this was nothing like the reaction she expected. And then, surprisingly, a wave of relief washed over her. A few months ago, she had told Mike that her marriage with Dave was practically over. She said they were trying to salvage it, but there wasn't much hope left. What scared her most about today was Dave's possible reaction. If he blew up or got emotional, it might make Mike question everything. That's why she had begged Mike not to confront Dave directly. But Mike had insisted real men handle things face to face. He wouldn't back down. Mike had been bracing himself. Even after hearing Deb's story about her dying marriage, he expected anger. Based on what Deb had said, he pictured Dave as this big, rough guy, uneducated, probably solved problems with his fists. Mike even briefly considered hiring a bodyguard to come with him. Part of him thought maybe, just maybe, taking a punch would ease the guilt he was carrying. "So Deb," Dave said, turning toward her, "you met Mike at one of those girls' nights out, right?" Deb nodded silently, eyes on the coffee table. "One of the same girls' nights you swore were totally harmless? That they wouldn't threaten our marriage when I asked." She didn't look up, just gave a tiny nod toward the floor. "I guess there's a lesson in that for you, Mikey boy," Dave added, glancing at Mike. Mike looked over at Deb, but her gaze had shifted to a different patch of carpet, farther away from him this time. "So, what's the plan now?" Dave asked. "Come on, Deb. You must have thought this through." You're giving me the house, so I'm guessing you plan to pack up and move in with him. I was going to do it tomorrow while you were at work, she said quietly. They're changing the locks then. Your lawyer buddy would probably agree it's a smart move. It's easier if you just do it now, isn't it? Dave said, motioning toward the stairs. Deb and Mike stood, ready to go upstairs. Actually, Mike, Dave added, mind if we have a quick talk? Deb can start packing. I think you owe me at least that much. Deb looked torn, clearly wanting to avoid the tension, but also afraid to leave the two men alone. Mike made the choice for her. He sat back down and said, go on, Deb. I promise I'm not going to hurt him. I just want to talk. Until we're officially divorced, I still feel responsible for your safety. I want to make sure he's really okay with all this. Besides, you've already made your decision. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. Our marriage is done. They both watched as Deb quietly climbed the stairs and disappeared. I've got to say, Dave, Mike said, you're handling this pretty reasonably. It's all right, Mike, Dave replied. To be honest, it's been about a year since I really felt any love from Deb. I'm guessing that's around when you two got involved. Mike nodded slowly. That's a relief to hear, in a strange way. I'd hate to feel like I was breaking up something that still had a chance. Dave smiled faintly. Well, thank you for not taking everything and for being decent about it. But Mike, since you're a lawyer, I'm sure you know that when you sell a house or a car, you're legally required to disclose any known defects to the new owner, right? Mike chuckled. Fair enough. Though I'm pretty sure slavery's been outlawed, and I doubt Deb would appreciate being compared to property. Dave laughed too. Yeah, I figured. Just making a point. He figured Mike was a smart, decent guy. And he guessed right. All right, Mike. I hope you understand. What I'm about to say isn't out of spite. I'm not trying to trash her. I just want to point out a few things about Deb that you might not have noticed yet. I care about her future. I really do. I've been in love with her for 27 years. I also want to tell you the things I tried to do to make her happy, things that didn't work, so maybe you won't waste your time trying the same stuff. Mike nodded. He had a feeling this wasn't going to be all that selfless, but he felt like he owed it to the guy to hear him out. Dave continued, I assumed Deb was back on the pill. Mike gave a slightly uncomfortable nod, realizing that was basically admitting he'd been sleeping with a guy's wife. Yeah, she's on the pill. I had no idea she ever started again, Dave said. She was on it when we first got together, but about 6 months to a year after we got married, she stopped. Said it messed with her sex drive. So it's been condoms for me ever since. And man, I hate those things. They kill the mood. I don't know about you, but I try to avoid them when I can. Yeah, Mike replied quietly. I get that. Dave went on. Then, when we decided we were done having kids, she used condoms as an excuse to not have sex much. I begged her to go back on the pill, but she refused, said she didn't want to be taking fake chemicals every day. After that, our sex life just started disappearing. Went from a few times a week to once or twice a month, then nothing. That was about a year ago. Mike didn't say anything. He knew Deb was pretty strict about what she put in her body, organic, no chemicals, clean eating. But with him, sex was still regular. At least 3 times a week, even with their limited time together. Dave hesitated and said, look, I know this is kind of crude, but does she, swallow? Mike felt his stomach twist. That was way over the line. Guys in his circle didn't talk like that. He looked away, uncomfortable. It's okay, Dave said. I get it. I remember what she was like back when we were dating too. Again, I'm not trying to be mean. But if I were selling you a car and knew the transmission was going to fail in 6 months, I want to give you a heads up. Deb hasn't done that since we got married. Actually, I don't think she did it at all until maybe 18 months in. Same with doggy style, it just stopped. And eventually, we stopped having sex entirely. I just got sick of getting turned down, so I gave up asking. You might want to start keeping notes, track any sudden drop-offs every few weeks. He paused, giving Mike a chance to say something, but Mike kept quiet. There's something else too. Took me a couple years to notice. One day I looked around and realized almost everything I had before I married Deb was gone. My bed, my couch, even old photos gone. To be fair, I found a box of stuff in the attic later, so she didn't throw them out. But it felt like she wanted to erase any trace of my past. I don't know if all women do that, or if it's just Deb. Dave paused again. Mike still said nothing, but thought about his new bed, his new sheets, and about the argument he had with Deb a week ago over a portrait of his first wife, the one he had loved deeply before life took her away. Dave leaned in a bit. I hope you're better at spotting her lies than I was. Just 3 weeks ago, I asked her if she still loved me, if we were okay. She looked me right in the eye and said yes. She's always done that. Looks you dead in the eye until you're the one who breaks contact. I can't believe it only took 3 weeks for me to fall this hard, Mike said, almost to himself. He staggered a little at how fast this whole conversation had taken a turn. Dave was unloading a lot, and Mike was struggling to process it all. Something about those last 2 sentences hit him wrong. It made his stomach twist, but he couldn't quite put his finger on why. So he focused on the one part that felt solid. Don't worry, Dave, Mike said. I'm a lawyer. I've spent the last 20 years reading people. Liars always give themselves away. Dave let out a dry chuckle. Good. Then here's some free advice. Take it or leave it. Watch if she takes her rings off when she says she's visiting her sister. And maybe, just maybe, check her underwear drawer once in a while. Don't trust her blindly like I did. I thought she couldn't lie to save her life. Turns out I'm just a damn fool. What else? Oh yeah, if she follows her usual pattern, she'll probably stop hitting the gym in 6 months or so and put on a little weight. At that, Dave stood up, pulled a photo album off the shelf, and started flipping through it. Here, these are from a couple years back. Around the time she started going to all those bachelorette parties. You can see she'd filled out some. Face, hips, it happens, right? 2 kids'll do that. Mike turned the pages and saw a softer, rounder version of Deb than the one he knew. She was wearing far less makeup than usual, and it surprised him how different she looked without it. As he flipped through the photos, he pointed to one. Is that Deb's mom? Looks a lot like her. Yep, Dave said. That's her in her early 50s. She was stunning, honestly. A real head-turner. He grabbed another album and opened it to a specific photo. Guess how old she is here? Mike squinted. I dunno. 55. Exactly. She hit menopause around 52, 53, and after that, man, her looks just faded fast. But she took it like a champ. Just said she was grateful for being beautiful as long as she was. I always admired that about her. Dave watched as Mike stared at the photos, flipping between Deb and her mother, thinking, now, like I promised, I'll tell you about all the dumb mistakes I made that led to her falling out of love with me. Maybe you'll learn from them. Maybe not. But it's worth a shot. He poured them each a glass of champagne before continuing. About 25 years ago, she wanted the big wedding. I tried to talk her out of it, said we should put that money into a house instead. She told me if I really believed we'd be together forever, I wouldn't be pinching pennies on the most important day of her life. She had a point, I guess. I think I still have a copy of our vows somewhere. We stuck to the traditional ones. Love, honor, obey, forsaking all others. If you go a different route, maybe you'll have better luck. Dave sipped his drink, then added, this probably won't matter much to you, but don't kill yourself working overtime so she can get the fancy house she's always dreamed of. Trust me, it won't keep her faithful. Hell, maybe we're sitting here now because I said no to the facelift she wanted. I thought saving for retirement made more sense. But when Deb really wants something, she pushes. You've probably seen that side of her already. Mike nodded slowly. He had. And for the first time, he wondered if the quality he had once admired so much, her drive, her determination, wasn't maybe something else entirely. So I thought I was being smart, totally in vain obviously, by taking her out once a month to talk through anything that might have been bugging us. I'd ask if anything I was doing annoyed her or caused even the slightest resentment. Our last dinner was just a few weeks ago, and she didn't mention a thing. A guy like you could probably come up with something better. Just then, Mike noticed the look in Dave's eyes, and it hit him. Dave was setting him up. Still, he wasn't entirely wrong. The idea that Deb was completely innocent didn't exactly match the doubts Mike had been pushing aside lately. But Dave's almost amused attitude about the whole situation threw him off again, and Dave just kept going, even though they both knew Deb had stopped coming down the stairs and could probably hear every word. Keep your eyes peeled for Liz, Dave said casually. If she starts noting stuff she's going to take from the house, that's your sign. She's already mentally moved on and is just prepping for the exit. It might not change the ending, but at least you'll see it coming and start digging for more proof. Mike blinked and looked around, really looked for the first time. 3 champagne glasses, a chill bottle, and a bucket. It all pointed to one thing. All 3 of them knew this talk was happening tonight. He thought it was supposed to be just the 2 of them. He'd totally missed the signs. Dave watched Mike's eyes scan the room. Yeah, he said, I figured today would be the day. Deb called me twice to make sure I'd be home by 7. Mike's gaze snapped to Deb, who was halfway down the stairs. She continued coming down, pretending she hadn't just heard everything. Dave, she said coolly, do you want to talk now about which family photos I can take, or would later be better? Dave ignored her. He leaned in closer to Mike, eyes locked on him. The last mistake I made, he said, was forgiving her the first time she cheated. What? Mike asked, startled. No, Deb said sharply from the kitchen doorway, trying to shut him up. Yeah, Dave said calmly. It was right after our second kid was born. I forgave her because she and our therapist convinced me it was just a one-time slip. Blamed it on postpartum depression. Sometimes I wonder if I was too easy on her. Maybe if I'd put my foot down back then, she wouldn't have done it again. He paused. I told myself I did it for the kids. And they turned out great, so maybe it was the right call. But for her sake, Mike, I hope you're strong enough to forgive her when your turn comes. I don't even know what to say, Dave. You don't have to say anything. Just ask yourself one thing. If your future wife cheated on you in your own bed, would you be able to forgive her? For the first time, Mike lost it. He leaned forward, trying to process it all. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Deb was standing silently in the kitchen doorway, pale and frozen. My wife would never disrespect me like that. We love each other, too. Hold up, he said suddenly. You said the first time she cheated? So, there were more. Dave didn't flinch. Just twice. Then, and now. Deb burst from the kitchen, panic all over her face. "No," she shouted. "I'm done packing, Mike. Just grab my suitcases and we can leave right now." "Calm down, Deborah," Mike said quietly but firmly. Surprisingly, it was his voice. Deb stopped stunned. Mike turned back to Dave. "Deb told me you guys had an open marriage. That you were okay with her seeing someone else." "Dave, did she look you in the eye when she said that?" Mike looked at Dave, then at Deb, who was shrinking by the second, then back to Dave. And in that moment, Dave saw it. The realization hit Mike like a punch. He wasn't nearly as good at spotting lies as he thought. "What else did she tell you about our marriage, Mike?" "She said things had been bad for years, that you two had been in counseling for a while, but it wasn't going anywhere." Dave didn't respond. He just kept staring at him. Mike went on, trying to fill the silence. "But now, that doesn't really match up with what you said. Still going out on dates, asking if she loved you." Dave held eye contact. That's when Mike got it. He'd been played. The shame was immediate. His expression shifted into one of pure self-loathing. He turned to Deb, now visibly shaken. You made me into everything I hate. I become the kind of guy who sleeps with another man's wife behind his back." Deb dropped to her knees, completely crushed. Mike stared at the same patch of carpet she had been fixated on earlier. Eventually, he pulled himself together and looked back at Dave. "Please, Dave, you gotta believe me. I had no idea." "Don't worry, Mike," Dave said gently. "I told you, she's a damn good liar. Honestly, if I'd known we had an open marriage, maybe I would have slept with her last year." Somehow the dry humor worked. Mike let out a breath, relaxing just a bit. But the damage was done. "So, I guess that's it?" Dave asked. Mike nodded. "Yeah, engagement's off. For good. In that case, I want you to meet a couple people. John, Alice." Just then the basement door creaked open. Hearing the noise, Mike turned around and saw a young man and woman walking toward him. "Mike, this is my son John and my daughter Alice." They were listening in on our conversation through a mic. John graduated from law school 2 years ago, and Alice just earned her degree this year. John and Alice shook Mike's hand, who was clearly confused and overwhelmed. John then casually picked up an envelope from the table and started flipping through its contents. Dave turned to his daughter. "So, do you believe me now, Alice?" "Yeah, Dad. No doubt. She's a cold, manipulative schemer." Everyone looked at Deb, who was still on her knees, now with her forehead pressed to the floor. Feeling the silence settle in the room, she slowly lifted her head and was met with 4 pairs of cold, accusing eyes. She jumped to her feet and bolted out the front door. Nobody made a move to stop her. John calmly finished skimming through the envelope. "Everything looks good, Dad." "Great. Thanks. Now, who wants a beer?" "Oh, I think I should go," Mike said, trying to make an exit. "You're staying, little Mikey. We've still got a few things to work out." "Like what?" Mike asked cautiously. "Well, I can forgive you for sleeping with that idiot. She said it was an open marriage and all, but I still got to decide whether I want to rip your head off and spit down your neck for trying to steal her." Mike eyed Dave carefully. The man was at least a head taller, built like a linebacker. But what caught his attention most was the familiar fire in his eyes. Dave took a breath and eased up. "John does what you do, Mike." By now, Mike had stopped being surprised by how much Dave seemed to know about him. "How's work treating you, John?" "The hours suck and the pay's worse. You want to come work with me?" "Hell yeah." Dave smiled. "Then that just leaves the little issue of supporting my ex until she find a job. She's got no money and nowhere to go now." Mike, feeling a bit of relief to finally be on safer ground, replied, "I'm really sorry, Dave. The second she lied to me, she broke the unspoken deal between us. In a breach of contract, ownership reverts to the previous holder," Dave said with a dry smirk. "Yeah, but morally. Don't talk to me about morals. I'm a lawyer." "John, grab a dictionary. Pretty sure I've forgotten what that word means." Everyone chuckled. "But seriously, Mike," Dave continued, "I think you should help her out until she gets back on her feet. If you play it smart, you might even get some decent nights in bed and pretend you're still thinking about keeping her." "Yeah, no. I can't do that. But I'll make sure she's okay. Not for her, just because it feels like the right thing to do." "Good," Dave nodded. "I respect good craftsmanship when I see it, and tonight you got the best of me. Ever thought about becoming a lawyer?" The way you spun your answers deflected and didn't give me time to think. That was some top-shelf cross-examining. Dave gave a humble smile and said nothing. He loved his work and the people who worked beside him. 4 beers then. For the first time, Dave looked away, waiting for the tears forming in his eyes to dry. He wasn't going to let anyone see that. Meanwhile, Deborah Brown was already 700 meters away, walking fast and picking up speed, like she knew she had just burned every bridge behind her.
Thanks for listening. Share your opinion in comment section and also do like and subscribe to the channel.